Right now, Columbus police are preparing for a worst-case scenario, an active shooter situation. And for the first time, 10 TV is teaming up with Columbus SWAT to take you along on a live active shooter drill.
The team has allowed us to come inside with them and bring our cameras like this one to show you firsthand just how Columbus police work to keep you safe. Thank you for joining us tonight at 5:30 for 10 TV News. I'm Tracy Townsend.
And I'm Kurt Ludlow. We are live right now at the former elementary school on Grubb Avenue, where the vacant halls and classrooms are perfect for this kind of drill.
10 TV's Maureen Kosad is there now with the Columbus SWAT team, and that drill is about to start. Maureen.
Tracy, this is certainly something we have never attempted before, but 10 TV is teaming up live with members of the Columbus SWAT team. We thank these guys so much for working with us, because what we're really trying to do here is to show you police readiness in the event of an active shooter in Columbus, and also to talk a little bit about what you should and can do to stay alive. Now, as you mentioned, we are at a vacant elementary school. We thank Columbus Public Schools for giving us access. You will see inside we have several cameras positioned. You'll be getting a first-time look at all of this as it's happening. And something else, too, we have also fitted Officer Ron Moss's weapon with the camera. So you're actually going to be getting the officer's point of view as they do what they are trained to do, and that is to go inside and seek out the target and stop the killing. Now, something that I can show you is this. There is going to be a heavy, visible police presence in the event of an active shooter in the city of Columbus. You may question, why wouldn't the police want to sneak up on this person? Joining me right now is Lieutenant Paul Ohl. He heads up the Columbus SWAT team. We thank you so much for sharing this information with us, because I think people are really desperate to know, what do you do in a situation like this? And I think people do wonder, why not try to sneak up on a shooter? Why do you want to look out the window and see a cruiser out every window?
Well, in an active shooter situation, apprehension is secondary. Our first mission is to engage that shooter and to have the shooting stop, and therefore injuries and deaths stop. Therefore, a lot of times if that active shooter knows we're en route and we're coming, they will stop and they'll focus on us rather than on the innocent civilians.
Okay, so here is the scenario that we have set up for the Columbus SWAT team. They have received a 911 call. There is an active shooter inside the school. Shots are being fired, and they are making entry. Lieutenant Ohl, I know this is something that your team trains for all the time.
Search right.
But in the event that this would really happen, what is going through these guys' minds as they're inside this school and they are trying to seek out this shooter and try to stop the killing?
Cross, move.
Even though it appears that things are moving very rapidly, what they are doing is they are observing and assessing in order to gauge what response they'll use.
Now, it's interesting the way they set up this formation. This is something that the Columbus Division of Police played a significant role in developing after the Columbine shooting, and that is that the very first officers on the scene go in. It's very unlikely that in the event of a shooting situation we would see the SWAT team. It's going to be, the youngest patrolmen. Talk about the fact that you guys train every member of the division in training like this.
That's correct. From the entry-level recruit all the way through to detectives receive in-service training, and patrol officers receive continuous in-service training, as well as we train on a continual basis on this type of response.
I know this type of training is called a quad formation. Basically, it's eyes 360 degrees. What is their job once they get inside the school? What are they supposed to do?
Well, depending on the situation, if there's an active threat, they're to go after that threat. If it's a search type, we don't know where the threat is, then their objective is to search and to find that threat.
If you're someone inside a school, inside a classroom, inside an office building, and this is happening, what can you do? What should you do to stay alive?
Well, one of the things is that you should know the entrance and exits. You should know if there's an emergency action plan in place for that facility and how to respond according to that emergency action plan. If you're an outsider entering a building or a commercial establishment, you should take the lead of people that are there and know that emergency action plan.
Shoot him! Shoot him!
Columbus Public Schools works closely with the police to have an action plan like that. Now, you tell me, how do you train men and women to run towards the sound of gunshot? Because the rest of us will be running away.
It's an ongoing thing with training to teach people to react. In stressful situations, people react according to their training, and that's why we train as diligently as we do.
What can people take away from this? I think the most important thing is that the police are trained, and it's not just the Columbus Division of Police. You train officers from all across Central Ohio to know what to do in a situation like this.
That's correct. We train continually. Every member in the Division of Police receives training to how to respond to these active aggressors, and we also do training for suburban jurisdictions and smaller jurisdictions on this type of response.
Do you feel like the city of Columbus is ready in the event that something like this would happen, something like we saw in Newtown or in the Colorado movie theater shooting?
I think we're significantly ahead of the learning curve on these. We continually armchair quarterback and debrief what we do, what our response is based on new incidents, and we make adjustments according to that.
And like we've seen here, most of these shootings end with the shooter turning the gun on themselves when law enforcement arrives. I know in Newtown, Adam Lanza, they said, committed suicide as the first responders arrived on the scene. But there's no way of telling how these situations are going to turn out, right?
No, they're very unpredictable and they're very random. There's no way to determine the outcome of these situations. But we are lucky enough to know that in most of these situations, when law enforcement does arrive and confront the shooter, or the shooter feels that he's going to be confronted by law enforcement, it ends that incident.
All right. We thank you, Lieutenant Paulo, for opening your team to us and allowing us to see what it is that you do. Now, coming up at 6, after the end of every action, after the end of every mission, the SWAT team always does a debrief. What did we learn? What could we have done better? How can we respond differently next time to be more effective? We're going to let you dip into that conversation, and we're going to talk a little bit more about where you can get more information on what you can do to make your business or your school target hardened. Reporting live in Franklinton, Maureen Cosat, 10 TV News.
So again, stay with us here on 10 TV as we continue to cover that active shooter drill.